I'm Joshua Bardwell. I'm coming to you from my field recording studio here in Malvern, Ohio at Flight Fest East. And I'm going to do a little segment today. I'm going to call it the Race Day Recap. I have talked about the parts on both of these quads, actually this whole quad, and I've had a chance to put them through some laps, and I've got some more thoughts about them. I think you're going to find it interesting. Stay tuned. We're going to start a discussion with this quad, which has on it the Emax 2306 2750 kV motors. And a little while back, I did an interview with Quad McFly, Ryan Harrell, where I asked the question, is there a freaking point to these motors? And actually, it's one of the, I think, the best videos I've done. The title's a little misleading because it really was a wide-ranging discussion on just how a brushless, he has a trove of knowledge. He knows so much about motors. And if you want to know anything about picking a motor and why some motors perform differently than others, I highly recommend you watch it. I'll put a link in the upper right. But the fundamental question I asked, is there a freaking point to these motors, still had not been answered. And I feel like now that I've raced these motors a little bit, I have a better perspective on the answer. The reason I wonder if there's a point for these motors is that the bigger motors in the 23 and 2400 size class, they draw more current. At least in the high kV versions, they draw a lot more current. You just have more windings and more energy. And so they perform, they put out massive thrust numbers, but if your battery can't keep up, what's the freaking point? Now, I've got on these motors right now the Avon, I should really ask Emax how to say that, the Avon props. And these props are specifically made for these 2306 motors, although, of course, you can put them on any motor you want. And I can tell you that I started with the tri-blades, because tri-blades are what I normally run. The tri-blades are sort of the general purpose of on prop, and these two blades are really the high speed. They're for sort of top speed runs. And on the tri-blades, basically every time I touched the throttle, the battery just sagged into the 13s. It was sort of pointless. And it wasn't a terrible battery either. It was the best one I tried it on was probably the Thunder Power 1600 milliamp hour battery. That is a top-notch battery, one of the best on the market, and it would sag. Maybe if I was lucky, it would stay at 14.0, but it would just sag every time basically you touch the throttle. And as a result, this copter was not any faster in a straight line or around a track than any other copter that high performance copter I might have, because you got all these extra kVs, the 2750 kV, but kV is RPM times volts, right, or RPM per volt. And if the volts drop, then you don't have the RPMs. So maybe with an 1800 or a 2200 milliamp hour battery, some battery that could handle the current these motors were trying to draw, maybe the copter would have been faster, but would have been heavier. And well, actually, as we all know, heavier copters fly fast. Yeah, on tri-blades with this quad, and this quad comes in around, I think it's around 300, maybe 320 grams. So it's not an ultra light, but it's not a pig either. Yeah, it not on tri-blades, not these motors, not the 2750 kV version. So I put the two blade version on, and I got to say, it's still pretty bad in terms of current draw, but it's doable. A really good battery on the two blade version with this quad. It's pretty flyable, and it actually handles pretty nicely, has decent top speed, but I'm not convinced that it's actually faster or better than like a really good 2205 or 2206 motor with the right, just a top-notch one, like a Brother Hobby, like a Returner, R3 or something. I don't know exactly what to pick. I'm not convinced that it's actually better. They're really nice motors, but I feel like we're really at a point where the usability envelope is getting so narrow. And if you fit in that envelope, if you have like an ultralight quad and, a floss or something, then maybe you can get that nth degree of extra performance out of this kind of a setup. But I just feel like these are not great general purpose. I mean, they're not bad, but especially when you consider they're a little bit heavier, there's other stuff out there. It doesn't knock my socks off. And I feel like I'm going to feel that way about all the 23s, the 230X and the 240X size motors. I've seen some manufacturers are coming out with 2407s now. And I'm just like, do you know something I don't know about the way electricity and batteries are going to work? because it feels like you do get more performance out of those motors, but only if you fit in a very narrow set of parameters. And the majority of people are just not going to fit in that set of parameters. The other thing I want to talk to you about today is this one. This is the Avantquads Leggero. And by the way, before you fill up the comments telling me that I should mention the Catalyst Machine Works Norris, yes, Catalyst Machine Works reached out to me after my review of the Leggero, and they're going to send me a Norris to test. Actually, the new, like, high-end, super lightweight Norris. So I will be reviewing that. Please don't fill up the comments with, hey, you forgot about the Catalyst Machine Works. Yes. But I've been racing this guy. I've had 2 or 3 races and one here at Flight Fest. And I got to tell you, this quad continues to impress me. The single best thing about this quad is I have yet to do a walk of shame on this quad with these props. Like, so many times I hit the ground, I hit a gate, and as long as I leave the throttle up and do my best to level out, the freaking thing just keeps flying. Like, it is, you know, a race quad, it has to be fast around the track, but also, like, unless you're just a perfect pilot, you're going to maybe clip a gate or something, and the ability to stay in the race and finish the race. How many races have you been in where, like, half the field crashes out before the second gate, and the guys who actually just finish and don't put in the best possible time are the ones who win? The ability to stay in the race is a big deal, and I have been amazing. Like, for example, when I first got this, I was not that impressed with this antenna. I prefer circular polarized antennas, but having raced it some, I see the logic, because it just stays in one piece and just keeps being flyable, and I'm super impressed. It's also, frankly, now that I've gotten a little bit used to the throttle curve on these Brother Hobby Returner R3 motors, I'm starting to like them a little better. It doesn't surprise me. When I first got it, the minute I raised the throttle, it would just pop up in the air and really surprise me. I've started to get a little bit used to that, and I'm really starting to like them. So, yeah, just a kind word about this quad. It's fast. Without too much practice, I put in a 14-second time on UTT1, which is certainly not a record-setting time, but just get out there, you know, on the third pack, put in 14 seconds. That's respectable, I think. And yeah, if you're thinking about getting one of these, I can continue to recommend it after getting some more experience with it. The thing is just seems unbreakable. It's not unbreakable, clearly, but it just keeps going. And I'm sure I will say the same thing, maybe even more positive things about the Catalyst Machine Works when I finally get it. But for now, this is the one I've got, and it's a doozy. That's going to do it for me here from Flight Fest East. Back to your normal video production next week. Actually, back to a hotel room. Yeah. But thanks for watching. And as always, happy flying.